grandmother.
Women in leadership, business, and lifestyle.
I know I do. Sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Lifin Talk today. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Richard Preston. Richard, thank you for coming on. Richard is the owner of New Life Recovery and also the executive director of Project Save Lives. And I wanted to bring Richard on. So definitely, I think that you're going to find this segment very powerful. And we are going to be talking about from rock bottom to rebuilt, um, a life that has been restored. And so, with that, Richard, tell the audience a little bit about your story. And again, thank you for coming on and being my very special guest this morning.
Thank you, Liz, for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to talk here with you today. My story is simply a tale of despair and redemption. My drug addiction took me to some lows that I never thought were achievable, and it did. And in January of 2006, I decided to make a change.
Well, if you have some words of wisdom, how would you tell anybody out there? How do you go about making that change?
Well, I think the first step is you've got to admit you have a problem. One of the things I talk about now to people that I walk with is, we have the only disease that you have to do a self-diagnosis. Because others around, let me explain that. Others around you will tell you you have a problem. You may even go to a doctor and they tell you you have a problem. But your mind will tell you next time's going to be different, or I can do this by myself. So what I say is you have to do a self-diagnosis. You have to ask yourself just how crummy your life is, just how crummy you are at the moment. All the manipulation, all the lying, all the selfishness, you have to come to grip with that. And that's really the first step in AA. So once you recognize and say to yourself, I have a problem, my life has become unmanageable with the substance that I'm using, then you can now seek healing.
So for you personally, what was your turning point where you decided to make that mind shift?
Well, that's a great question.
Yes.
Oftentimes we hear people have to hit their rock bottom. Well, I've done some things, Liz, in my life that I'm not proud of, and they were downright despicable. But my turning point, and that's why I often say every bottom has a basement, and everybody's bottom is different. Mine happened on January 27, 2006. It was my birthday. And I was over at my mom's house, and I was extremely drunk. And my brother called the police on me. They came, and they trespassed me from my mom's house. Now, here it is. So when they were taking me away, my mom told the police, get him out of here. Where she had defended me before, this time it was take him out of here. He wasn't raised like that. He's educated. I don't know who he is anymore. And she told the police, Liz, when you get him down there, can you strip him of my last name? Because I don't want to share it with him anymore. Something stuck. And that's when the next day I went to court. And the Honorable Emmett F. Ferguson III, I appeared in front of, and I pled and I begged for leniency. Whereas my brother was in the courtroom asking him to lock me up and throw away the key. And the judge said, I see something in you, and I'm going to give you an opportunity. And he did. He put me on probation for a year, ordered me to go into treatment, and 4 days later, on the 31st, I checked myself into the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center here in Jacksonville. Now, Liz, I had been there before, so I often tell people what was different. The difference this time was my willingness. I said, whatever these people tell me to do, I'm going to do it because there's people staying sober. And I adopted that when I walked in that day, and I still live to that to this day.
So your want to.
Your want to.
Your want to.
That's right.
Became your how to.
That's exactly right.
So from the point that you made your decision and you went through, you know, the program,
Mm-hmm.
what did you find after life after you got out? How did you find your way to become an entrepreneur, to become an accomplished author, which you are, and how did you find that outlet? And not only finding that outlet, it was the outlet of the open door to help many, many, many other people.
Well, that came as a direct result of what I did on the front end. So when I went in, Liz, I said, I'm going to be the Michael Jordan of recovery. I spoke it into existence. Okay, so how do you do that? First, you got to have a vision. You got to have a plan. You got to have a goal to get to all of those. So I was obedient, and I listened, and I actually stayed there over the time that the judge had sentenced me to. He sentenced me to a year. I stayed 13 months. Things were going so well, I didn't want to screw them up. And so then once I got out, I went back into the world of retail is what I was in. I worked my way up to area manager. I was making six figures, and there was still an emptiness somewhere in there. And I just came to the conclusion that God had saved me from suicide. He had saved me from death. He had saved me from, promiscuity out there. And I said, it's got to be more that God wants me to do. So one day I came home and I told my wife, I said, you know what? I quit the job today. And she's like, well, for real? So what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to help others in recovery. So she said, and do what? I said, I think I'm going to run sober living houses. So I took a year off and just dove into the recovery community, people such as yourself. And I visited all the treatment facilities and got to know people. And in November of 2017, we opened up our first house in Mandarin.
Wow. And then fast forward, how many do you have right now?
We have 7 total.
That's amazing.
We have 7 total. The need is great.
Yes.
And the beds are few. So although that sounds like a great number, it is much more that is needed out in our community.
So for as big as our community is, what do you think is needed to kind of raise the bar and creating the awareness that there's such a need out there for more programs, holistic programs for finding purpose, and it's not only about the beds, it's also changing the mind shift. And as the mind shifts, then there's a whole possibility that the person can be whole, can live a holistic and creative and successful life.
That's right. And you hit the nail on the head. This is not about putting a drink or a drug down for an extended amount of time.
Right.
It's about a total inward change.
Yes.
I always tell people there's a right path and a wrong path to recovery. The right path begins with change.
Yes.
With an appropriate starting point, followed by interconnected activities that flow. in a logical sequence. And basically, what that means is, and I tell people, Liz, the first thing you got to start doing is all those old bad characteristics and habits that you had as an addict or an alcoholic. They've got to go.
Yes.
They must go. The lying, the manipulation, the selfishness. So I harp on those things right there because that's sustainable recovery. A lot of people get sober for a year, 2 years, but it's not sustainable because they never change from within. When I was out there, I was addicted to chaos. I got addicted to chaos too. So if when I followed that blueprint of the inward change, it made things sustainable for me.
So as you being an entrepreneur and accomplished author, you can see it from different perspectives because you now live your life holistically from the inside out. So, do you instill and impart those, some um, kind of like that paradigm shift? So, people, because men and women you have both for
Correct.
men and women.
Correct.
So both men and women can actually find their purpose because I think that most often, as I have found, um, like you mentioned, chaos, that your mind is all in chaos anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And as a life coach, I really do believe that there has to be a mind shift, the willingness and the want to first.
That's right.
And then everything else can come along.
That's right.
So, how do you instill that in each individual coming through your doors, Richard? And how do you empower and impact so they're not the same going out?
Well, one of the things that I've implemented in my program is something, as a matter of fact, everything that I've implemented in my program is what worked for me. And you mentioned it, purpose.
Yes.
So every Wednesday, all of the houses, we do a book study on Rick Warren's Purpose Driven Life. My sponsor gave me that book 20 years ago and said, read this book, it'll change your life. I read that book, and it was instrumental, part of all my other tools, in helping change my life. Um, because when you're out there, and a lot of people, it's hard for me to explain addiction to people. Purpose has been lost. My mind was so screwed up. Liz, I used to say, I know there's a God, and God knows all. So God must have known that I was going to be a drug addict, and I'm just living up to what God expected of me. That's where it took my brain. But the purpose, I think, if you don't have a purpose, relapse is on the horizon.
So, can you, couple of more minutes with you, can you talk about what drove you to, add you being an author, something else to the list of what you do? And for maybe those out there that have something within them that they want to bring out, whether that's a desire to um, learn something new, transfer over to another skill set, another career. Anything is possible. You made the change, and so in that there has to be that desire. And what would you say to that, Richard?
Well, I would say, in the rooms of AA and NA, excuse me, they tell us that complacent. If you're complacent in this, you're going backwards. You're actually in relapse mode. So I always look for the next level, the next thing to do. I hated writing in school. I was a mathematics major, so I challenged myself. And I did a mission trip to Africa, and during those many hours of layovers and traveling, I was with my pastor, Dr. Gary L. Williams, and I would tell him little snippets of my story, and he would be like, "That's amazing. That's nothing but God." And he said, You need to put that in a book. And he had written 6 books. So he said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, introduce you to my, not publisher, but my publicist. And, and he did. And she told me, I'll never forget. I said, so what do I do to start? She goes, you need to start writing. So I wrote and wrote and wrote, and that's how my book came about.
That's great. Well, I think that, your story is, and I have the privilege to have gotten to know Richard through the years, and I can tell you he is so impactful in the lives of so many, and he has got a powerful story. So, as we wrap it up, any closing thoughts that you want to share with, the viewers out there?
If there is someone that is close to you, that you know, that you love, that is struggling with addiction or alcoholism, a little education. What I like to tell people, live by the 3 C's. You didn't cause this. You're not going to control it, and you can't cure it. So there's no need to get mad at them. There's no need to get into verbal confrontations, because the disease of addiction doesn't care about that. That person, when they make their choice to seek treatment, that is when we start supporting them. And that's something I have to have a talk with loved ones on a daily basis. So that's a little something I'd like to offer to the audience.
Thank you, Richard. And one more thing, where can they find, if they want to find you, to connect with you, review your book, and maybe perhaps purchase your book? Where can they find you?
You can order my books off serenitygranted.net. And I will autograph it or sign it for you, and we will ship it to you as well. And if you would like to connect with me, you can go to my website for the sober living homes, and that is newlifejax.org.
Thank you, Richard. And the last thought, you know what, because Lifin Talk, this is what it is all about. Just being real, bringing topics that, may have the opportunity to change somebody's life or somebody's trajectory, because it is never too late to rebuild. If you get down, you know what, there's always opportunity to get back up. So I want to thank you today for watching. And Richard, thank you so much for coming on just a few minutes and share your inspiring story, and for everything that you do. Thank you. And if you like this content, I want you to subscribe, hit the like button, and just share with others, because you never know who you can impact. And if you do like this and have any comments, please feel free to comment in the box below. So until next time, have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.